Ladies and gentlemen, K-Kim here. Welcome to the daily update. Hope you guys had a good day trading today. Market is down slightly, about 0.3% today on the S&P. We did see Nasdaq being up a little bit. Looks like semiconductors up about 1%. Russell's about same as S&P. Banks are down about 2%. So as I record this video, looks like we got some key earnings report that is coming out. Looks like Facebook, Amazon, Apple all up after hours. So if we can see the market potentially, if we can hold those gains tonight, overnight, the futures and pre-market, potentially if we can gap up tomorrow, there will be a good sign for the buyers going into next week. So let's get into it. Trying to figure out what we can expect going into tomorrow and next week here. Looking at the spider. We talked about yesterday and this week, it just, it was kind of a strange sentiment, because if you've been watching my videos almost every single day this week, I've been talking about almost every single video, unless some kind of shenanigan. I think even I titled my video on Monday, the shenanigan move incoming, right? So we indeed did see some shenanigans this week. I mean, just think about the gap down here and then a gap up here, and then there was a gap down here, some fluctuations here, and then all of a sudden abrupt sell-off here, and then we saw a gap up here, and then we saw a rally there, and then we saw a gap down here, and then we saw the flush to the downside, and then all of a sudden came back up, and then we came up, and then we're back up here. So pretty much this entire week has been kind of a shenanigans, right? And that's why I think this week I felt so strange, because I mean, whenever you're dealing with the price action, because I mean this week we every day seems like we were seeing some good bullish action, but I think market likes to shake people out, because when things look way too bullish, or if people are when things are way too obvious, market doesn't like that, right? When people think that they figured out this market, right? This is the reason why when you focus too much on the short-term fluctuations and your trading style is way too short-term, and you're so focused on the short-term up and down, when the market sees a shenanigan like this, it becomes very difficult to stick with your plan or trades, right? So, I mean, for me, just the way I trade in my time frame, last couple of days, I pretty much this entire week, it just really had no impact for me, how I trade and how I execute my trades and how I hold things, because I'm much longer term. But starting Monday, this week, throughout the videos this week, almost every single video, I was mentioning that unless there's some kind of shenanigan, Yesterday, we also talked about that there's this gap, right? And we also talked about how that gap is important. It's a good thing that buyers opened up this gap, right? So should there any kind of slide, right? This is what we're talking about yesterday. Should there be any kind of slide or shenanigan, this gap should act as support. So when this thing gap down, like it actually gapped down from here to here, you see that gap was filled. So that was the first level of support, obviously, right? That was the first level of support. And then we saw that my midterm moving average acting as support, right? We've been talking about how that midterm moving average been, acting as pretty strong support, right? It was resistance here, it became a support here, near that level, near that level, near that level, near that level. So we did see, decent sized gap down, and I think bears were hoping for continuation to the downside, but we didn't see that. We saw a lot of dip buying activities in that vicinity, and then we brought it right back up here, feeling about 75-80% of that gap, right? It's because this gap provided that first level of support. So there was that cushion. So that thing just came down, right? It didn't fizzle down. It didn't slide down. It gapped down. So when you see a gap down, it's a big, fast downside move. and then it gapped down to this level here where it was this gap area, and the gap got filled, and that provided that cushion for the buyers. But then because of this gap down was, pretty decent size, there was some weight to it. So then we continue to see selling happening, and it is no coincidence we found support in that vicinity where my midterm moving average is residing. And then at that, so we see first the selling had to go through this support, the gap support, but because of that impact was, pretty significant. Looking at things in micro term, right? Looking at things in micro term because it was, decent sized pullback. So even with that first support, bears, the sellers kept pushing lower and lower and lower. But remember, this gap, if there was no gap, I think the story might have been a little bit different today. That gap provided that first support and then a second support. So that support, bears had to go through the first support and second support, and they got higher in the micro term. And with that, and then obviously we're in a bullish sentiment overall, which we've been talking about this week, right? In the midterm, right? As my midterm moving average continue to rise, we talked about how we want to continue to give benefit of the doubt to the buyers. So bears had to go through 2 levels of support, the gap support there, and then the moving average support. Not enough. Bulls came back, brought it up. Second hour, we saw that bullish engulfing, fully engulfed the first hour candle body there. And then we saw strong follow through on the third hour. We fizzled on the fourth hour. Fifth hour, we continued higher. We climbed higher, marched higher. And then the last hour, we were holding up. We didn't see, after that shooting star like candle there, we didn't see follow through to the downside. We held up. We did not see next hour follow through to the downside after this shooting star candle there, right? So when we didn't see a follow through next hour, which was that fifth hour, and then we had a good idea after that market was going to stay up. So this gap, as of now, is a small gap. It still remains open as that's the resistance area. Again, with the key companies, key stocks, right? Large tech stocks like Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, I believe that they all, had a positive reaction today with the earnings beat. If we see a gap up, that will be the best case scenario for the buyers, just gapping it over, right? To not deal with this resistance area. I mean, that is a resistance area. That's a prior pivotal area there, and then the gap. So if we gap that up, then we'll turn this into an island bottom, right? Because then at the time, you will see that that's a gap down, that's a gap up, if we do see a gap up. And if we do see something like that going into tomorrow, then I think, buyers are going to try to tackle this gap, the big gap right here at 327, and that's the prior swing high resistance area, which is 327. And we still got this big gap that needs to be filled. Let's check out that oscillator before I end this video. So oscillator continues to curl down, right? So we do see, we are seeing some discrepancies, right? We are seeing, conflicting information, but that's kind of something you can see sometimes where, you can see right here, price went up right there, and then the oscillator came down. You see that? So we've seen that before. And this is the reason why you want to have maybe multiple oscillators, because I have other oscillators that I look at. I only look at this one oscillator with you because it's going to take too long if I look at all the oscillators. But there's 2 other oscillators to look at. They are actually all curling up. But this is actually my favorite oscillator, so I share this with you because this is it has a good momentum indicator. Also, it has a good overbought, oversold indication. It gives you that good sentiment of that. So basically what this is telling us is that bears are not truly materializing with the sentiment, which is currently is a bear sentiment, right? And market has been going up. So basically they're moving opposite direction. So can you imagine if we do see this thing crossing back up, how much more room the buyers have? So when you start to see oscillator pulling down while the price is going up, we're at the juncture where bears, if the bears can bring the price down, then this will continue lower. But the problem is if we do see a cross up, right? Because it's gonna add, this oscillator is gonna be a little bit laggier when you're dealing with choppy market like this, right? There are other oscillator that you can look at for choppier market like this. We've been seeing this week a lot of up and down shenanigan moves. So what happens is if this thing gaps up tomorrow and this thing starts to march higher, right? Let's say March is higher tomorrow. Gaps up, March is higher, and then this oscillator is going to finally cross back up like that. That means there's going to be a lot of room to move and buyers are not tired at all, because what the buyers did with this gap down and this shenanigan move, we just kind of reset the oscillator. Like look here and here, right? We made a move and then we saw that bullish move right here. So if we do see something like that again, we should see another leg higher, clearing the recent highs there. So again, we saw that before, stocks rising, the oscillators pulling back, right? So I'll come back for you guys tomorrow. I'll tweet things out. If we do see a gap up, that will be the best case scenario for the buyers, is gapping up. I think, after hours, we did feel this gap, but we'll see how the market opens up tomorrow morning. That will be the most important part. How the market opens up tomorrow morning will be important, because you never know what's going to happen overnight, after hours, and the futures and the pre-market. Things can change. So I really don't pay too much attention to the after hours or the futures or pre-market. I'll just deal with it when the market opens up tomorrow. I'll tweet things out. If we do see a gap up, if we do see my oscillator crossing back up, I'll tweet things out, let you guys know, and we'll do the market update video with the extensive analysis tomorrow for the weekend. You guys enjoy your evening and good luck trading tomorrow.